So how's the conference going for everybody? I guess people might be muted. So Tina, are you muting yourself? It's not that you are your
Correct. I'm
co-host, so you
muting
can.
myself.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Where is everyone from?
Hi there, I'm from Vermont.
Ooh, Vermont. I have yet to go to Vermont. Okay.
We're having our issues this morning. We're just trying to get everything working and it's been a little difficult. So this is the first thing that's actually working for me so far.
Oh, this is cool. Are you part of HOSA?
Yeah, we're somewhat new to HOSA. We started, let me see, we tried it out for the first time 2 years ago. And I had a student that chose not to go to nationals. And then of course, last year was a bust. So this year, I think I have 6 students and 5 are at home right now and 1 is listening in.
Okay, that's awesome.
We're new to it. We always did Skills USA because Vermont didn't have HOSA.
What school are you from?
Southwest Vermont Technical School. It's in Bennington, Vermont. It's in the southwest corner of Vermont.
Nice, nice.
How about everybody else? Where are you from?
So I'm looking at the chat. We have Massachusetts, California. So Kirsten is from Massachusetts. Keela from California. Shivani is also from Cali. So several West Coasters, which means it's only 6:28 over there. Wow.
Bravo. I'd still be in bed.
Yes. Way to go for being here on time. That is awesome.
I'm getting someone here at 8 and the others still aren't here. So yeah, good for Cali. Kirsten, we're in Mass.
I'm from Westford.
Okay, yeah. Another New Englander.
Very cool. So I'm going to start my screen sharing again. I didn't know that means I probably, can you see folks when I'm screen sharing, Tina? Oh,
Yes.
okay. I guess I'm the only person that can't really see folks. I don't know why that is. Okay. And I want to make sure that, okay, that'll open up here and I can move it over. Cool. So we'll start right at 8:30, 9:30. It is nice to have a live crowd, I have to admit. So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Adiola Coker, and I am a faculty member at the Fike School of Pharmacy. I am here with Dr. Tina Beck, who also teaches at the Fike School of Pharmacy, and we will be talking to you today about the many opportunities and doors that a career in pharmacy can open. So I have a PhD in pharmaceutical sciences. I went to college 4 years, then went to PhD to graduate school, where I did research on protein DNA interactions. And from there, I went to for postdoctoral studies at a different school, and then went on to go to industry. So in the pharmaceutical industry, I was a formulation scientist in drug development. And after about 9 years, I moved on to academia, where I now teach students who want to be pharmacists. So I teach pharmaceutics in our PharmD program. I'll let my colleague, Dr. Tina Beck, introduce herself. Tina?
Hi, my name is Tina Beck, and I have a PharmD, so I am a pharmacist. I went to pharmacy school in North Carolina, and then I worked at a independently owned pharmacy for 1 year. And then I went to go do residency for 2 years here at the Fike School of Pharmacy. And now I am teaching, but I also have a practice site at a local hospital here with the inpatient family medicine department. So what I do is I actually round with the doctors and nurses on a daily basis on our patients that are admitted to family medicine. And I primarily teach our pharmacy students problems with the kidneys, as well as now they're infectious diseases. So different infections that we can treat.
Very good. So we are both from UIW. So University of the Incarnate Word was founded in 1881 by the Sisters of Charity of the Incarnate Word. There was a cholera epidemic and they were called to come help. And they ended up starting an orphanage and a school that grew into the University of the Incarnate Word. UIW is the largest Catholic university in Texas and the fourth largest private university in Texas. We are a Hispanic serving institution, and we're ranked #1 nationally among faith-based universities that confer the most bachelors to Hispanics. For students who are interested in checking us out, we have over 100 undergraduate, graduate, and professional degrees, several health profession programs that I'll be talking to you about next, and we also active in sports. We're a member of the Division I Southland Conference. So with regards to the health profession schools, we have a pharmacist school, which is where we work, a physical therapy school, a medical school, a nursing school, and a school of optometry. So definitely many opportunities here at UIW for folks interested in the health professions. Here at the pharmacist school, we have two main departments, the pharmaceutical science and the pharmacy practice. But in several pharmacy schools, there are three main arms. So the pharmaceutical science, pharmacy practice, and pharmacy administration. The pharmaceutical science folks like me are folks that have a PhD in either pharmaceutical sciences, medicinal chemistry, pharmacology, or some other chemical or biology related degree. And so we were trained primarily in bench research, drug design, development, or figuring out drug action. And so with our PhD, we're able to conduct bench research, and we're also able to teach students about the science arm of pharmacy. I'll let Dr. Beck talk to you about pharmacy practice and pharmacy administration.
So pharmacy practice, we use all the amazing research that pharmacy science does for us, and now we get to apply it to our patients. So if you've ever taken a medication, think about antibiotics, inhalers, all that, or you know anyone that's taking medications. We are now, as pharmacists, in charge of making sure that patients are getting safe and effective medications for the right disease states. And so my job in the pharmacy practice is to teach pharmacy students on how to become pharmacists. And then pharmacy administration is more the management, the leadership of pharmacy. So in the pharmacy school, we have our administrative department. So we have the dean, different chairs. But in the pharmacy world, pharmacy administration usually means pharmacy managers of some kind, or leaders, or CEOs of different organizations that are leading the charge in the profession of pharmacy.
So many students want to know, how much is it going to pay me? I mean, money should not be the first thing. It really should be about your passion, but you also want to know that what career you take will be lucrative. So for a pharmaceutical scientist, the AAPS, the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists, do surveys every year. And so in 2020, the median pay of the survey respondents was about $159,000. Now that, of course, will differ depending on your level of education and experience. So the folks that are in industry with just a bachelor's of science will end up on the lower end of that pay scale, followed by the master's, followed by the PhD. And then the administrators or the executives and the managers end up to be on the higher end of that scale. Dr. Beck?
So for pharmacists, the median pay in 2020 was almost $129,000. So that is, again, kind of like with pharmaceutical scientists, depends on your level and where you work at. The pharmacists that make the most money are the ones that you are probably the most familiar with, that you see at CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. Those pharmacists are the ones that get paid a little bit more. And then the hospital pharmacists, we're catching up to the community pharmacists, but the hospital pharmacists get paid a little bit less. Pharmacists in academia get paid a little bit less. And then if you're in administrations, or if you're a pharmacy manager, pharmacy owner, you will go up on the pay scale. But about $129,000 per year is our median salary.
So let's talk about the different career opportunities. So I'm going to talk about the science track, and then Dr. Beck will talk about the practice track. So when you think about drug in the pharmacy, even before that drug gets into the pharmacy, there's a whole development that takes place. So there is research done to perhaps identify a drug target that would be helpful in healing a disease. And once that drug is identified or designed, the drug is then tested in the lab to see, how is it working? Is it, binding to a certain receptor, certain enzyme? Once there's some idea about how that drug is perhaps working, then there are studies done in animals to test if that drug is going to be effective against, that disease target. Testing on the lab, testing in animals, and once there's maybe some idea that, okay, we have a drug target that can perhaps heal this particular disease, then testing is done in humans. So the clinical trials that you hear about, so phase 1 clinical trials to look to see if the drug is going to be safe, and sometimes this is done in even healthy volunteers just to see, want to make sure that it doesn't hurt people. And then phase 2 clinical trials in a larger population, in this case patients, to see does it work. And then phase 3 clinical trials are done in hundreds and thousands of patients to see, is it not just effective, but also safe when tested in a larger population. And in this case, we're looking, does the benefit of the drug outweigh the risk? Because there are usually side effects. So once all these clinical trials are done, then the drug has to be manufactured large scale. Once it's known that, okay, we have a marketable drug, then it goes to the FDA here in the US to be approved. The drug is manufactured, and then it shows up on the pharmacy shelves. So the folks that are in the science track are the folks that are basically working before the drug gets into the pharmacy. So you have the medical scientists who are doing the research to identify, do we have a drug target? And then there are the chemists who are involved in perhaps designing or doing organic chemistry to synthesize this molecule, if it's a small molecule. We also have chemists that are involved in analyzing the drug molecules to see, are they pure, and to see how they break down. And then we also have biologists who can work and test those drugs in animals and look to see how that drug is working. And then we have the microbiologists who work with microorganisms. So with the COVID era, obviously, we had a lot of antiviral medications, right, that were being tested. So microbiologists can work to see how drugs work against microorganisms. And then for some products that have to be sterile products, so drugs like injections, we want to make sure that there are no contaminating microbes. So the microbiologists also test for the presence to make sure there are no contaminating microbes in specific medications. So that's what microbiologists do. And then we also have the pharmacologist. How does the drug work? What is the mechanism of action? That is the job of the pharmacologist. So they do work looking at perhaps receptor binding and even looking in animals just to see how does that drug work. And then the pharmacokineticist is the person that looks at what the does to the drug molecule. So once that drug is taken, it has to be absorbed into the bloodstream. It has to be distributed to different tissues and organs in the body. The body can break it down or metabolize it. And at the end, the drug or its metabolites can be excreted, for example, in urine or in sweat, or sometimes even in breast milk. So the pharmacokineticist is the person that kind of looks at that. We call it the ADME, absorption, distribution, metabolism, excretion of the drug. And then we have the toxicologists. Those are the folks that look to see, look at the safety. How toxic is this drug? Is it going to harm the patient? Could it potentially harm a fetus if it's a pregnant woman? So the toxicologists look at the drug to see how toxic and basically how safe is it. And then we have the formulation scientists. So once we have this drug molecule that we know is going to work, when you go to the pharmacy, what you see is not just the active ingredient, it's the active ingredient mixed with other ingredients and active ingredients that are added to either help deliver the drug. So if it's going to be a syrup for a baby, you need, for example, sugar, right? That's an inactive ingredient that's been used to help deliver the drug. Or the inactive ingredients are also added to help give the drug a long shelf life. So when you see that expiration of, say, 3 years, that's also, the inactive ingredients are helping to stabilize the drug. So that's what the formulation scientist does. And that's what I did when I worked in the industry. I worked with monoclonal antibodies in formulation development. So once we have a formulation or dosage form, we still need to develop the process of making that drug. So the chemical engineer, the process engineer are the ones that design that process of how are we going to make this medication. And so once they've determined that process, then it goes to the production engineers who have to now make it large scale so that we can sell it to millions of people. So production engineers and the manufacturing folks are involved in making sure that that drug is manufactured and we have a safe and effective manufactured product. Then there's the regulatory scientists that are involved in making sure that all the documentation is in place. The drug will have to be approved. In the US, it's the FDA, that's that regulatory organization. So that regulatory scientists are the ones that are compiling all the information and making sure that every piece of documents that is required to get this drug approved is in place. Right now, we've moved to electronic submissions, but back in the day when it was paper, I mean, it was like this information would be in trucks being driven to the FDA to be reviewed. And so once it's reviewed and approved, then it can go to the market. Now, the other arm here is the academic, which is not what I'm doing now, where we teach and we also do research in the drug development and design area. So this is kind of a subset. I didn't talk about every single science track opportunity, but this gives you an idea of what folks with a PhD or a master's in pharmaceutical sciences, or even a bachelor's in pharmaceutical sciences, the kind of jobs that are available to them. Dr. Beck?
All right, so now I'm going to talk about the pharmacy practice tract. So again, these are pharmacists. So these again are the people that you're probably most familiar seeing in your stores at CVS and Walgreens. And that is what the retail, community, and mail order pharmacists are. We call them retail pharmacists or community pharmacists because they are the ones that are outreaching to the community the most in regards to most contact with the community. So this is where you bring your prescription, you go to your doctor's office, you get a prescription, and you take your prescription to the pharmacy, and they will fill that prescription for you. The two key words in pharmacy practice is safety and efficacy. So every one of these pharmacist positions are all looking at the safety and efficacy of all the things that the pharmacy science faculty people have done in the research side, and making sure now that we are giving it out in mass quantities to the community. Are they still efficacious and are they still safe? After the community pharmacist, you have the hospital pharmacist. Hospitals do not shut down for holidays. They don't shut down at night. We have sick people that are there 24/7, sometimes for months, hopefully not. But during that time period, you need to have pharmacists to deliver IV medications, oral medications, even inhale medications that are to our sick patients so they can get discharged and go home to their loved ones. Ambulatory care clinics are the ones that are pharmacists that are in your doctor's office. So you may sometimes see them, maybe not you as high school students, but maybe your parents do. These pharmacists are working side by side with the physician in a doctor's office, and they are in charge of certain disease states that they can manage on their own under the supervision of a physician. So high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol are the three most common disease states that these pharmacists can recommend or write prescriptions for to the patient to say, this will help lower your blood pressure, lower your cholesterol even better, or even lower your blood sugar a little bit better to get your diabetes under control. That is a new and upcoming area in pharmacy that's really taking off ground of trying to be working with the physician, as I said, to make these joint decisions on what makes, to help treat you better. The home health and home infusion, some patients don't need to stay in the hospital for months. If they can go home with an IV medication because they can't take something orally, we can send patients home on IV medications. And that's what the home health and home infusion pharmacists do. They ensure that the IV products are stable, they're appropriate, and make sure that anything that needs to be monitored for the patient to make sure that the drug is working, they will be in charge of monitoring all that. I'm going to lump long-term care and geriatrics together. Long-term care is a fancy word for nursing home. And then geriatrics is our elderly population. And so our long-term care and geriatrics pharmacists, that's their passion, that's their little area, is taking care of the elderly. So think about your grandma, grandpa, great-grandma, and then if they're in a nursing home or a facility, again, we want to make sure that these patients, they usually end up being on lots of medications for many disease states, are that they're getting the appropriate medications. The military. So we have our military, no matter what branch of the military, all over the world, fighting for our freedom. And so we also want to make sure that our military folks are taken care of for their medications and anything they may require. Medical writing is a different avenue of pharmacy, but if you like writing, so if you're like, I like English and I like writing essays, this may be an avenue for you. But what you're doing is you're taking the scientific information and you're condensing it down to make it simplified for either physicians to reference. So instead of a 50-page document, you may condense it down to a 1 or 2 page handout that highlights the key information. You can also do it for the patients themselves, or you may be writing for regulatory agencies. So writing protocols and consent forms. Academia is what I do currently, is teaching. Again, teaching what I have learned as a pharmacist, teaching the importance of safety and efficacy of different medications. Compounding. So it's hard since we're virtual, but if you like baking or following a recipe, compounding pharmacy is probably more for you, because what compounding pharmacists do is they follow a recipe and they create new ways to deliver medication. So if you think about if you can't swallow a pill and maybe it's not available in a liquid form, a compounding pharmacist will figure out a way to deliver that form in a liquid form, pill form into a liquid form so someone can swallow it. And then also it's very popular for veterinary. So think about your cat, dog, bunny, turtle. If they need medication, sometimes it's hard to deliver it in a human pill form. And so compounding pharmacists will take care of developing drugs for your animals. Hospice is your end of life. So as patients are actively dying and progressing towards their end of life, hospice pharmacists want to make sure that no one is suffering. So that is to help ease them into a very comfortable end of life process. The industry, as Dr. Coker mentioned, if you don't have a PhD, you can, as a PharmD, still work in the industry. You can be a liaison or a liaison between the pharmaceutical company and physicians. You can do your medical writing through industry. There's lots of different avenues without a PhD that you can work as a pharmacist in the industry. Managed care is related to insurance. So think about, your medical insurance or co-pays that your parents pay. It's all about money. So, but in a safe and cost-effective way to run our healthcare system in this country specifically, making sure that, the best drugs are affordable without overburdening our healthcare system. Nuclear pharmacy is about using radioactive, so active radioactive isotopes and tagging them to different vehicles that will enter the body and highlight or light up, I guess, in an imaging setting to show where certain things are. And then we were talking about geriatrics, and then veterinary. There are pharmacists that's not a vet, so they don't take care of the physical injuries or illnesses of your pets, but they are important to make sure, again, your pets are potentially getting the appropriate care. And then where I went to pharmacy school, there was a tiger sanctuary nearby. And so a veterinary pharmacist was there to make sure the tigers there got the appropriate medications when they were sick. And I'm not going to read into all of these, but within each section of pharmacy, there is specialties. And these specialties usually require a residency, which is 1 to 2 years of additional training on top of your pharmacy school. And that's to, again, specialize and hone in on your skills in these very specific areas. So if you really like oncology, which is your cancer related illnesses, you want to be like, I want to be a cancer pharmacist. You can specialize, do a residency and specialize in oncology, pain management, emergency medicine. There are multiple specialties that you can pursue. But again, usually these require a residency, which is 1 or 2 years of additional training. And then there's management and business. So if you want to be your own business owner, you can own your own pharmacy. So an independently owned pharmacy. And you may need additional degrees we aren't really going to talk about, but you may require a master's in business administration just to make sure that your business stays in business. You are making a profit. And then we have professional, civic, and political leadership, which are related to either CEOs of pharmaceutical companies or even political leadership advocating for the profession of pharmacy. So not advocating maybe for the pharmaceutical company, but for the actual profession of pharmacy to make sure that pharmacists are recognized as being healthcare providers that are helping patients get the best medicines.
So we've talked to you about the different career pathways. We want to talk about how to get there, right? So I'll talk about the science track and Dr. Beck will talk about the practice track. And so for the science track, after high school, the next step is to get a bachelor's degree in either chemistry, biology, maybe engineering, something related, biochemistry. And after getting a bachelor's, students then go on to perhaps get a master's degree in applied pharmaceutical sciences or a related degree, and then go get a PhD. So it could be pharmaceutical sciences, pharmacology, medicinal chemistry. And so after the PhD, folks can go to work directly, perhaps in industry, or they may decide to go ahead to get additional postdoctoral training to get specialized in a particular area of research. And they can then go take that to either work in industry or government labs or academia. Some folks, there are PhD programs that do not require a person to get a master's. You can just go straight into that PhD program. Midway, there's a qualifying exam, but at the end of 4 or 5 years, you can get a PhD. That's the track that I took. So 4 years of college, perhaps 2 years of master's, and then 2 or 3 years after that to get a PhD, or after the 4 years of college, 4 or 5 years to get a PhD, and then either straight to work or postdoctoral training. Dr. Beck?
So for the PharmD side, in high school, you have multiple pathways. You can either do 2 prerequisites. Each pharmacy school in the country, we have over 100 pharmacy schools in the country, have different prerequisites that you have to meet to apply to their pharmacy school. But in general, most prerequisites you can complete in 2 years of undergrad. So you don't need to get a bachelor's degree. So you can apply to pharmacy school after 2 years of undergrad. If you meet their prerequisites, you can apply to pharmacy school. Or if you wish, you can go to the bachelor's route, get your 4 years of college degree, and then after your bachelor's, apply to get your PharmD. Once you get your PharmD, which is 3 or 4 years, depending again which pharmacy school you apply, UIW is a 4-year program to get your doctorate degree. After your PharmD, you can say, I'm done with school. I just want to be a pharmacist. I just want to work. And that's fine. You can go be a pharmacist. And some students realize in pharmacy school that they have different passions, that they discover new passions. If you can go get your law degree after your PharmD, and you can be a lawyer specializing in pharmacy law. Or some pharmacy students realize they really love what we do, but they really like what the doctors do too. And so some will pursue an MD afterward. But the most common route that we commonly see is after your PharmD, again, if you desire to get more training, is to go to get a residency so you can specialize in a very specific area of pharmacy. After your residency, you can go get your board certification, which is an exam that you take, and it just recognizes you that you are a specialist in a certain area. So for me, I have my board certification in pharmacotherapy, which tells the letters after my name just says, I know pharmacy. Like I can do a lot of things with my pharmacy degree. I didn't really talk a lot about this, but you can also do a fellowship, and you can do a fellowship after residency. And again, that's now an additional training on top of your additional training. But fellowships are a little bit more research intensive. They try to maybe incorporate some of the sciences coming in without quite going for that PhD. But the fellowship is a little bit now taking your applications material that you learned from your residency and now applying it in a research environment, a little bit more research intensive. And again, you can go to your board certifications after that.
So before we move on, because we're about to conclude, I just wanted to highlight what we offer. So obviously UIW, our students some students take the prerequisites here. We have students that get their bachelor's here. We offer the PharmD degree, and we also have a residency program as well. And we are about to start a master's program in applied pharmaceutical sciences. So definitely many opportunities for those that are interested in a pharmacy career here at UIW to get that career started. So to conclude, pharmacy provides a variety of opportunities beyond the CVS and Walgreens and Walmart that you see. So we've talked about the science track, we've talked about the practice track, and many opportunities are available in both tracks. The path can be short or long. And so we just want to highlight, don't be afraid of detours. I know people who have the PhDs and went to get their PharmDs, or PharmDs and went to get their PhD, or got a PhD and went to get a law degree so that they could study patent law. So definitely there are different paths, and it's okay to take detours, because everything that you learn along the way is something that you'll end up using. And I just want to highlight, don't disregard anything you're learning in high school for our high school students, or even in college for college students, because you may feel, oh, I don't think I'll ever need this, but you never know when you're going to need it. So definitely don't disregard anything that you're learning in school. So I'm going to stop sharing and to ask, what questions do you have? Catherine, can folks, I think Catherine was trying to talk.
Oh, no, I was babbling because I have kids in the classroom, so I'm talking, saying
Oh, I'm
people are
sorry.
here now.
Okay. Any questions for us?
We know that do pharmacy jobs get boring? No, I don't. You can make the job interesting. My day, so again, I worked in the community setting for 1 year after I graduated. You do see things over and over again, but then you feel more confident because you're like, oh, I've seen this. I know how to handle it. And then you create new avenues for your job. So as I mentioned, ambulatory care is becoming the new thing. And when I was leaving my job to do a residency, my boss was actually trying to create an AmCare clinic. So again, trying to branch out a little bit. So you don't have to just say, this is my job description, this is what I do. There's so many different opportunities. You can make your job what you need, what you want it to be. For me as a academia person, I love teaching. The different students I get always makes my life interesting. But on the hospital side, I love the fact that I never know what's going to come in through that door. So I may have a patient with heart failure. I might have a patient with, asthma exacerbation, but then I have someone last week who was growing maggots out of their infected toe. And so you're like, oh, okay, maggot therapy, like in a sense. But so I never know what's going to come through that door. So for me, it's a very interesting job. So I think a long answer short is to make your job what you want it to be and not get boring.
And just to follow up on that, I think it definitely just depends on your passion. So folks that are in the pharmacy, if you're passionate about helping people and being with patients, then you'll never find it boring because you are helping people. Krishna asked, did we picture ourselves ever educating others on opportunities from the beginning, or was it more gradual? So for me, I guess I wasn't sure. I knew I wanted to do drug-related research when I was in college. And so, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do afterwards. So in my postdoc, I think teaching might be boring because I'm going to be teaching the same things over and over again. So I'm going to go into industry. And then I went into industry and I realized that I really enjoyed mentoring the people that worked with me. And I also wanted to do research, and I decided at that point that I would go into teaching, and teaching has not been boring. I've been here now 12 years, and yeah, I may be teaching the same subject, but I end up tweaking things because there's always new information and it's always new students. Dr. Beck, you want to answer that question as far as was it gradual for you, or did you always know you wanted to teach?
No, I had no desire to teach whatsoever. So I thought until I came to do my residency, and our residency here at UIW does have a teaching certificate program that's required. And I'm like, my co-resident and I kind of looked at each other. We're like, we're just going to do the bare minimum to get this a teaching certificate. And we ended up loving teaching, and we both ended up in academia, when we said we were never going to end up in academia. But helping students, the mentoring, seeing you guys get that light bulb when you're like, oh, I get it now, is just such a rewarding experience that I absolutely love my job. I love being a pharmacist, but I love teaching. And then pursuing the MD. So after you get your PharmD, you can apply to med school. You have to meet the prerequisites of the med school. So that may mean that you have to take an MCAT, an exam that you take before you apply to medical school. But a lot of your PharmD courses may count towards the prerequisites towards your MD, but it is a separate PharmD. You do your 3 to 4 years, depending on the school you'll go to, get your PharmD, and then you would apply to your MD program. There are no PharmD, MD tracks like that are combined together, just because it's not a very common pathway that a lot of people take. So it wasn't enough for people to do that. Because if you think about it, 4 years of pharmacy school and then at 4 years of medical school, that's 8 years of getting 2 doctorates. And then for your MD, once you become a doctor, unlike the PharmD where you say like, I got my PharmD, I'm done learning, like I want to start working. MDs, you have to do a residency. If you don't do a residency, you just have the letters MD after your name, but you don't practice medicine. So there's additional training afterwards for your MD. So thinking about that way, that you're looking at 10 plus years of doing a PharmD MD, if that's what you really want. So it's not a very common pathway. So there are no accelerated paths that I'm aware of in the US.
Any other questions? I think I've seen MD, PhD programs, and I don't recall, I mean, there may be PharmD, PhD programs, but I don't think I've seen PharmD, MD programs.
No, like I said, there's very few of us that go for the PharmD, MD. Usually by then you realize if you want to be more pharmacy oriented or if you want to be more doctor oriented. The few people that do the both, they maybe realized in pharmacy school that they thought they liked one pharmacy and they still do, but their passion really became more focusing on the MD. But as Dr. Coker put in the conclusion, follow your passion, and no matter what that path looks like, just follow it if that's really what you are passionate about.
Any more questions? We had a short Kahoot game that we're prepared. So if you'd like to play that, we can go to kahoot.it either on your phone or anywhere, and I'll log on the screen. But any more questions before we play the game? I know we've got about 20 more minutes or so on the time.
This is a very short Kahoot. This will not take 20 minutes. It'll probably take 2 minutes, 2 or 3
Yep.
minutes.
I agree. So let me see if I can, let me close this. Okay, let me share my screen. And all right, so we are going to play in classic mode. Can everybody see my screen? So once you click on kahoot.it, go ahead and enter that game pin 2249182 and your name, and we will get started. Okay. I'll give us a couple more minutes and then we'll just start with whoever is on. And this will literally, I think, maybe take less than 3 minutes. Okay, we need to wrap up. All right, so let's get started. And the pin is on the screen, so you can still log on if you wanted to. So in general, what is the minimal years of undergrad you need before applying to pharmacy school? All right, so the minimum is actually 2 years of prerequisites. So great job, Lucas. Next question. This type of pharmacist can manage blood pressure, diabetes, and cholesterol in doctor's office. And it's a tougher one. So the correct answer is ambulatory care. Great job. Lucas, great job. What type of degree would you need to be the lead scientist to develop new drugs? Five more seconds to answer that question. Yes, the correct answer would be a PhD. To be the lead scientist, you want to get a PhD. Great job. And Shivani moved up. Great job, Lucas. What is the additional training that some pharmacists may pursue to be a clinical pharmacist, not research intensive? Five more seconds. So yes, the correct answer there is the residency. Great job. And the final question, true or false? There are only a few paths you can follow if you pursue pharmacy as a career. Awesome, yes, false. So there are multiple paths that you can take if you want to pursue a pharmacy career. So great job, Prishna and Shivani and Lucas. So great job, everybody. Great job. So I understand we have to wrap it up. Any final questions before we finish? Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us and wish you a great rest of the conference. And yeah, you're very welcome. If anybody has any further questions, I'm going to put my email at on the chat. And then Dr. Beck, if you want to put yours as well. So you're more than happy to follow up with us if you have questions about pharmacy or anything. So yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being with us. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right, Jake, I guess that's it. Are we free? What's that?
Yep, thank you for doing your workshop. We'll provide feedback after the conference.
All right, thank you so much. It was great to see everybody. You take care.
You too.
All right, thanks, bye-bye.